One of the mechanisms, instruments, options, if you like, available to the family court when they're looking at contact between estranged parent and children is indirect contact. And we've done some footage in the past about indirect contact, and indeed we offer an indirect contact service. You might want to find that in our library. But today I want to talk about indirect contact from a slightly different angle. But before I do that, run the intro. Indirect contact is where a parent is given the opportunity to communicate with their children but without actually seeing them or speaking to them. It's usually issued in a case where there is some degree of perceived risk between the parent and the children. And so rather than the parent lose contact altogether with the child or children, they are afforded indirect contact. Now, let me take a look at a couple of very real, very live court orders that reference indirect contact. So here's one. Father shall have indirect contact with the children by sending them gifts and or comics no more than once a month, starting on a particular date that was relevant to this. Mother must make the items sent available for the children to read and see. That's it. That's all that order says. This next order, again, another indirect contact, says indirect contact shall take way by letters, cards, gifts, photographs sent to the mother's address by the 25th of each month. In the event that the father fails to adhere to the indirect contact consistency, then the mother may cease the indirect contact. So, on those two particular cases, it happens to be father who's engaged in indirect contact, but there are occasions, and we here have got a caseload where mothers are also issued indirect contact. So the individual is not important. What's important is what it is that those orders are saying. Let's just revisit them again. So, the first one, do you remember the first one? The first one said, father shall have indirect contact with the children by sending them gifts and or comics no later than once every month, and mother basically must make them available for the children. So, indirect contact in that instance, what there was no instruction for mother to encourage the children to receive the documents. There was no instruction for mother to advise the children that the documents, that the letters, that the gifts are from their dad, from their father. But more importantly, look at the phrasing. Father shall have indirect contact with the children by sending them gifts and or comics. So in that instance, indirect contact is father sending gifts to his children. What does that do? What that does is that creates a premise that says dad equals gifts. Dad doesn't equal anything more than gifts. And also because dad is estranged and mum is under no obligation to advise the fact that those gifts have come from dad, what is going to happen in a conflict-driven environment? What's going to happen in a conflict-driven environment is mother is going to receive those gifts and she's going to do one of two things. Hand them to the children and advise them that they're from her, or don't hand them to the children at all and simply dispose of them. Issue number one, indirect contact. Let's have a look at the other order before we explore indirect contact a bit further. The other order says indirect contact will take place by way of letters, cards, gifts and photographs sent to the mother's address and to arrive by a particular date in the month. In the event that father fails to adhere to the indirect contact consistency, then mother may cease the indirect contact. So what does that do? What that does is it puts all of the power in the hands of mother. Because the court has said, Dad, you get to send your kids stuff. They've got to arrive on a particular day. If it doesn't arrive by a particular day, mother has the opportunity to cease the contact. Mother is in control of that environment. What does father get back in either of those scenarios? What does father get back from that process? Because neither of those orders, and those orders are very typical, the wording of those orders is very typical, neither of those orders ask for father to receive feedback, responses, a reply, a thank you, none of that happens within those orders. And in terms of most indirect contact, whoever it is who is doing the sending, their role is to send stuff in order to try and engage with their children. But unfortunately, they have no control over what happens to that stuff, and they have no mechanism by which they receive any feedback. So the purpose of indirect contact is almost mute, because the purpose of indirect contact is almost to appease one parent that they are being allowed to do something in order to connect with their children. But the real value of that connection is little or nothing. We here at McKenzie Picave, we provide an indirect contact product where we work with parents in order to produce proactive and fun-packed letters to go to children. We rarely get a response. We rarely get a reply to the letters that we send, or rather our parent that we're working with does. It is a simple one-way mechanism that achieves little or nothing, apart from continuing to promote the estrange of one parent from the children. Indirect contact is available to the court. They use it quite widely. Here at McKenzie Picave, we question the value of it, and we wonder whether the purpose of using it is merely to throw one parent, the estranged parent, some sort of crumb in order to appease them whilst they continue to be distanced from their children. Thanks very much for watching. If you want to learn more about Daniel Picave Counselling, watch that video. If you want to learn more about McKenzie Picave Family Law, watch that video. And remember to subscribe, because 68% of you haven't. See you next time.